Hello and welcome to EarthStar Talk. Today, on April the 2nd, 2022, I have a very special guest dear to my heart, and this is Sherie Conrad. Sherie Conrad has had many spiritual experience. She is one of my students, but she's not also a student. She is also one of my teachers in a sense that she has had so many experience, and it's always interesting to categorize those experience. And she's also channeling information from angels. But let her talk herself about herself. So Sherie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to the spirit world? Whatever comes to mind is great.
Okay, well, we would have to start at the very beginning, and that was when I was about four years old. There was a birthday party that I had, and it was my fourth birthday, and my birthday is on the fourth, and so it was called my golden birthday for some reason. My grandmother was very adamant about that, and I was dressed up in like a little princess dress with the little slippers, and I had a wand and everything else. And she said, "Today, any wish that you make will come true." And I thought that was pretty awesome. So I didn't want to wish for like candy because I could get that anytime. And so I thought about everything that was going on in our life, even as a child, that I was aware of. And what I wanted was happiness. And so that's what I wished for. When I blew my candles out on my cake, I wanted to be happy and I wanted to feel secure. Those were the two things that were important to me when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And so I didn't think too much about that. We lived in a very, on the outskirts of New Orleans in a very rural area. And like there was a dairy across the street that I could walk to and go get milk. The little man there would give it to me. And I would love to go in the weeds and I would get lost in the woods. It was just like uncut lots behind us that had trees and stuff on it. But I would end up places and people would always put me like up on a bar, and I'd end up in this bar room that you're not supposed to be in. And they'd put me sitting up on the bar, give me a Coke and talk to me and ask me where I lived. And I wouldn't tell them because if I told them, then they'd bring me home and I wouldn't get any more Coke. Okay. So I had a real easy way of meeting people. And I really thought that there was a real problem with other children because they didn't want to talk to adults. They only wanted to talk to kids. And there were so many stories that adults could tell you. And then I had an amazing thing happen. My mother had a baby, and that baby was born premature and stayed in the hospital for 8 weeks. So when she went to the hospital, she came home without the baby. And I didn't understand that. So we went to the hospital to see, and she was just so tiny. She wasn't even 5 pounds. She was like 4 pounds and 2 ounces. And they wouldn't let her leave until she was 5 pounds. But my mom was not really doing too well after she had that baby. And they didn't understand what postpartum blues were back then. And so my grandma, my mama said, "Look, you have to become the lady of the house now. So you need to do all these things to help your mom." And so I had this list of things to do. And so I was starting to run a household when I was 5 years old. And when my sister came home, she was such a beautiful baby that it was better than a toy. Everybody else had baby dolls they were playing with, and I had a red-haired, blue-eyed, porcelain-skinned baby, and it was just amazing. And so she came home in July of that year, and in September, it was time for me to go to school, and we went to get the first required immunization that we were supposed to have, the polio vaccine. And so when we went to do this, they did it in the school cafeteria, and it was this big long line, and families from subdivisions were invited in. And they had this machine that inoculized us. It was like an electric staple gun. They put on your arm and poof, poof, it just sent it straight into your skin. There was no needle. It was just shooting it straight in. And the baby was 8 weeks old. And so I got immunized, and the nurse wanted to immunize the baby. And my mother said, "Oh, she's only 8 weeks old." And the nurse said, "Well, you can either do it now and get it for free, or you'll pay for it at the doctor's office when you go next time." And so that was the nurse. She was the authority. My mother swung her hip over, and they gave that baby the injection. And what happened is it was too much. She got the same dosage of an injection that I got at 5. And so she ran fever really, really high for a couple of days. We brought it down by packing her in ice, but it actually affected her brain. It burnt part of the motory division of her brain. And so she did not have normal tendencies of a baby. Her eyes were not focused anymore. She didn't move her arms. She didn't move around. She just laid there. And so I would pick her up. I was still going to school, and we lived next to my mama, who came over during the day to help my mom. And then it was by December of that year, right before my birthday, and I got this whisper telling me, hide under the couch. I was like, hide under the couch? Who said that? And so I noticed that they were organizing chairs in our living room. And so when everybody went in the kitchen, I went in the living room and got underneath the sofa and hid underneath it. And I was pretty tiny, so I could scoot underneath there. And there was this big adult meeting that they had that I was eavesdropping on, and it was about what to do with my sister. And part of our family wanted to send her away to an institution because she wasn't normal, and it was going to be considered, it would be something that would cast a shadow on our family and make us look really, really bad. And I had one relative who was politically involved and said she couldn't have a retard in the family because people would think that there was something wrong with all the rest of us.
Oh my goodness.
And so there were
how
these,
ignorant at those times, right? I mean,
this was
unbelievable.
in the 50s. This was 1959, 1960, this happened. And so my mother was there and my dad was there. My dad was agreeing. It was his side of the family that wanted to send her away. And my mother was very, very controlled by my father. He was very demonstrative. And I had little country grandparents, and I had a grandfather who had a 6th grade education, and he listened to everything everybody had to say. And they said, okay, so it's decided. They were making the date to have her picked up. And he stood up and he said, I listened to everything everybody had to say, and I'm telling you right now that baby's not leaving. God sent her to us to take care of, and he knows what he's doing. He sent everybody else here too. And so he said, if this is not an animal, you don't put down a child like this. And so it caused this big ruckus and this cleave in our family. And my dad's family stormed out the door, and he went with them. My mother was crying, and everybody left, and I was still underneath the couch. My papa kicked my foot, and I was like, I'm under here. He said, I could see you flip flop. I was like, oh my God. And he said, come on out, Shell. We need to talk about this. He said, this is going to be really hard, and you're going to have to help us take care of and protect this baby, because there are a lot of people who don't want what's best for her. And so at that point in time, I was just so shocked. And he said, how did you know to get under that couch? And I said, well, Papa, this person told me to get under the couch. And he said, who? And I said, I don't know. I couldn't see him. They just said, hide under the couch. And he looked at me and he said, well, you must have an angel. And I said, why do you say that? And he said, because that's not another person that could have told you that. Everybody
Wow,
that
I'm
knew
getting chills. My hair stand up.
Everybody that knew about the meeting was there. And so from that day on, that angel was available to talk to me on multiple different levels. And I'm sorry about all of that tweedling. At first, when I heard that voice, it was like a voice that talked, and it was in my head, like somebody's whispering in your ear.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got older, it started being just a knowing. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night before she would cry, so that she wouldn't make noise, to wake my mom and dad up. She slept in the room with me, so I could take care of whatever it was she needed, was her diaper or a bottle, or she just needed to be turned and soothed. And so I thought that was pretty cool. It was like this internal alarm clock that went off. And on top of that, in the whispers that I had and the just automatic knowings, I started having things that were consistently shown to me. Like I would wake up and it would be a specific time of night. And I remember always 3:33 in the morning. And I was like, so what's so important about 3:33 in the morning? I don't know what it was, but there was something important about that. And it was repetitive. I would see it on license plates. I would see it everywhere else. And I never knew what that was for years and years and years and years. But as she got older, they thought she was going to be a vegetable. And my grandfather had all these amazing ideas about how to develop the muscles in her legs and her arms. At one point, he made a tricycle and put blocks on the pedals of it, mm-hmm. and would tie her feet on there with an old t-shirt cut up and tie her hands on there. And then he put a bar in the back to tie her spine because she didn't even have the ability to sit straight up. And we'd give her a bite of something really good, and she would go, and then we'd push the bite back. And if she wanted another bite, then she had to pedal to come forward.
That's amazing.
Well, we developed,
Ingenious.
yeah, well, he was a genius. Okay. And so he just kind of knew. And I asked him how he knew. I said, well, how do you know how to do all this, Papa? And he said, well, I have somebody whispers to me too.
So it runs in a family, obviously. That makes me curious. You know from my classes that I'm always inquisitive and encourage people to ask questions. So when you had these whispers, did you ever ask, who are you? Yeah, who's talking to me? And what does 333 mean?
I didn't for a long time. Okay. When I was about 9 years old, there was something that I was told by that angel. And when I went to class that day and it happened, I knew exactly what was going to happen. And I told the teacher, blah, 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 blah. And she goes, well, how do you know that? And I said, because I have an angel that whispers to me. Well, I got punished for that, sent in the corner, for making up stories. And so I was really, really angry about it. And so when we were on the school bus going home, I was sitting there and I was thinking, I really wish that you would tell me what your name is. And I want to know how come you're talking to me. And I was just in tears. And when I got home, I went in my room with the baby, and it was like, time to sit down. She said, sit down. They're old enough now to understand this. And that's when she told me what her name was. And that she was a special angel that was sent to help me navigate life with my special sister, that there were going to be major obstacles that we would face, but that I would always be given the knowledge, the finances, and the capability to deter anything that tried to stop the path that I decided that she and I were to be on. Wow. And that I was meant to create a wake for other people to know that a child like that was a gift and brought to their life. It didn't take away from their life.
Well, that gives me chills. And I think that's, with your permission, I will put that as a headbanner, because when we do interviews, we never know what's coming first. And as you're obviously also telling the story, Spirit wants you to tell. So that will be one of the headbanners, how to, take care, or what the purpose of a child is, which is different. Yeah. And not the norm. And that not being the norm sometimes is quite all right and has a purpose from God's source. I think that's a very important point.
Every child like that has a mission and a purpose. And I know exactly my sister's purpose. And I know that she knew before she was born that was going to happen to her. In fact, it was something that she agreed to have happen because of the role that she played in this life for her karma and how it worked into my karma. And it took me years of my life to understand all of this. It wasn't until I was well in my 30s that I understood. But even at that young age, in that first conversation we had, my angel told me that my sister was not going to use so many of the capabilities that she had available to her in this lifetime. She was going to choose not to verbally elocute. She would never really speak. But what she was doing was gifting me the vibration and the power of her speech so that I would have double that. I have a double dose of that in this lifetime. Okay. And so I never lack for something to say. And I'm very capable of doing extemporaneous speaking. And I know it's because she lent me the additional vibration of that skill. When I was in the pre-life locker room packing my toolbox, she said, hey, sis, I'm going to come down there, but I don't want to get involved in any of the earth drama that you're going to have. But you're going to face a lot of stuff because I've taken care of me. So here, take my voice and use that to help both of us out. And so there are so many inherent natural skills that I have. I'm very creative. I am very capable of analyzing very, very quickly. I read so fast. I can read an entire book in like 2 or 3 hours, and it's not just skimming. I can tell you everything that's in it, do a comprehension test on it. And when I was about, I guess, 12 years old is when I understood the value of what she gave me. Okay. Math, now that's something that we're both deficient in. When I was like, so hey, how come you didn't get any math for us when we were up there? And she said, we talked about it. You didn't want it. You couldn't imagine what you would need that for. You didn't like bean counting things. That was a left brain activity. You were much more interested in right brain things. And so I was like, what do you mean my right brain? So many of the conversations that I had with my angel, I was allowed to embrace communication with her higher self through that angel to understand what was going on with her. And at one point in my life, when I tried to explain this to people, they thought that I was crazy, that I had a psychosis, and that there
Yeah,
was
I'm
no way.
just reading psychology books to explain left brain people to certain phenomena which we experience. And let me interject here. You talked about the higher self. So what we normally understand as a higher self is a higher soul aspects of ourself, which operates from a higher level of knowledge, experience, or overview. When you envision an elevator and in a company, and the whole company functions like your soul. You have so many stories on a high rise, and you know, up there, the CEO level, that's your higher self, and you're operating on three-dimensional level, that's your day-to-day level. But if you go up into the elevator and you see so many levels, and you see the doors go open and there are many people, so you are functioning on many different aspects as a soul or as a person. And when we meditate, we can go up there, we can connect with that all other of what we are also, which most people decide to blink out with like blinkers, and just see this three-dimensional reality of good and bad and this artificial theater play of life. But people who are open can also open themselves up here to see the rest of the film, which is called soul. So I just wanted to interject to explain maybe understandable what higher self is. It's a higher aspect of yourself which sees things from a way high up and a different perspective, sees the bigger picture, so to speak. So excuse me for the interruption, but I just wanted to say how that could be. Decide all odds that hearing voices is a bad thing in psychology terms, but actually it's in our terms a very helpful tool. And I can attest that Sherie doesn't make any of this up, and she's not crazy and I'm not crazy. And that's why we're here discussing, so that other people who have similar experiences also understand they're not crazy. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're sitting here, and that's why we're talking, right? So tell us a little bit more. How did it go from there?
Well, what I understood, and I'm still in my preteen years, they call it the tween years now, but life is moving along, and I became more curious about my angel. And there was a point in time where there were some things happening that were just really exciting to me with my sister. I decided that she was going to talk. Okay. I was like, you cannot, just look at me with your eyes. I need to hear something from your mouth. And so I would work with her, and we would do the sounds, bae, and so the first time she looked at me and she said, "Ote," I was like, oh my goodness, she talked. And so we developed a language that she had that was just so amazing, and I could understand her. It made me think about the tribes and the people in Africa, how they have their own language. She didn't understand what a letter was, and she didn't understand what a word was, but she knew what to elocute to make something happen. She loved a McDonald's hamburger. I mean, there is nothing that I couldn't get her to do. All I'd have to say is, you want to E-burger? She could not say the sound for H. You would say hamburger, and she'd look right at you and she'd go, E-burger. So instead of me continuing after a year to make her call a hamburger, everybody in our life started calling a hamburger an E-burger. Okay. Everybody adjusted to her. She couldn't say pajamas. You'd look at her and say pajamas, and she'd say eenies. So I don't know how you say pajama and it goes in and swirls around and it comes out eenies, but she had her own little language. And it's so funny because the friends of ours and people that I grew up with. And when I became older and, she lived with me and was with me, there's this whole group of people who speak that language, and they don't even think anything about it. We're out and they say, oh, look at these eenies. And everybody's like, what is an eenie? because they're attached to her that way. But there is something that is so amazing about a special child like that. And I want to share that with you because I know what my sister's purpose was and exactly why she came here. But the one thing that I learned when I was 10 years old is that she is nothing but pure white light. I would go out into the world and I'd get fussed at, beaten up at, scolded, and then I would come back and I'd be all depressed and worn down and my mind would be worried. And I'd just sit by her and hold her, or talk to her, or read her a book. And in an hour, I was like a little flower that had gone in water and was all of a sudden perked up. And I was like, wow, she makes me feel good. And so my angel said, that's her job. That's why she's here. It's because what she wants to give you is pure energy. And when you go out into the world, you're like a flashlight that has batteries that are fully charged. And your light is on all day long. Okay. And so this person needs you to keep that light on over here because they need this. And this person needs you to take care of this. And this person wants you to be in charge of that. And this person needs you to generate this much revenue. And this person needs that. And so you've got all of these things drawn on that battery. And so when you come home, you're tired, but not just physically, it's mental and emotional. And the pure energy of a child like that, who knows how to do nothing but love, recharges all of that in such a selfless manner that it is the most amazing gift that you can ever receive. And that's why people who are entrusted with a child like that are receiving a gift. And if they don't know how to
interject and just dwell on this one more time for everybody to really let it sink in, that a special child like this is a battery of love for us to recharge. It's not a burden. It's not a nuisance. It's not to be mistreated. It is a battery of love for us to be recharged because it has a unhindered and bountiful connection to the divine. I just need to underline this.
An infinite supply of
special.
love.
Yeah.
Infinite. That is the definition of the word infinite. You know what infinity is when you have a child like this in your life, because anything that you need to draw from the universe that is worth anything is connected to love. And that is transmitted on a daily basis. And you don't even have to be there. There are times that I've been places and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need my girl, help me figure this out. I need to have that extra kick right now of energy and protection for me to make this decision. And I could just feel it. It's like a radio frequency that is aligned with mine. If I'm broadcasting on 99.5, I just need to tell her where I am so she can connect her energy to mine to be able to send it there. But from the day that I learned that and she came into my life, I felt like I never walked alone. Everything I did for two, but everything that I had the ability to draw from, I drew from two also. And that is why I think my life has been so special and so amazing. By the time I was 25 years old, I had accomplished everything I thought I was going to do my entire life. I remember sitting down and starting a book saying, okay, what now? What comes next? Okay. And so some of those things were real worldly things, materialistic things. One of the things that I asked for when I was really young was the ability to earn enough money to be able to provide whatever she needed and never to have to tell her no for something she required or desired. Okay. And so the path for that was made available to me and known to me at a very early age. And it was not the path that everybody else wanted me to go on. Okay. All of my friends from high school were going on to college, and I didn't have very many of them because my sister was so important in my life that I came home to her when she was there. Okay. For me to spend that time with her. If I dated, if she didn't like the guy who rang the doorbell, she's so funny. She'd open the door, she'd look at him. If she didn't like him, she'd just close the door. And I'd say, sorry, I'm really sorry to have you come all the way over here, but I'm not going to go out with you today. Why? Well, my sister doesn't really like you. And they're like, well, she doesn't even know me. Yes, she does. Okay, that's all there is to it. But she had an antenna for that. That was just amazing, And I remember the first time we ever went to like a seaquarium water park. There was this big tank with manatees and dolphins swimming in it. And she walked up to the glass and she put her hands like this on it. And all of the dolphin and the manatee started swimming towards her. Okay. And all the other little kids that were standing there were getting scared because here's these big things just like zooming across there. And she just put her hands like that. And she looked at me and she said, cute puppies. so those were puppies to her. She knew the word puppies for a dog, but that was just another kind of a dog to her. And I was like, wow. So that made me start reading about dolphins and manatees and how they work on sonar. And I was like, wow, her frequency that she communicates with me on is so pure that it can actually transmit to other animals. And then that made me understand why every puppy, every dog we ever had wanted to be by her. And some of them she would let come by her. Other ones she'd say, mo, 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 go away. Okay. But it was just, I feel so blessed and have had such a rich and full life of experiences by seeing the world through her eyes. She taught me the most important thing in the whole world. And that is, there is no such thing as time. If you ask Dana what time it is, it's time to go to sleep. It's time to eat. It's time to get E-Berg. It's time to put our Eenies on. It's time to put the pot of coffee on. Okay. But it's never, the only time she ever learned was 2:30. And that's because when we put her in the first little daycare that she went to, that's when she could leave. And she'd cry at the front door and the lady would say, you have to wait till 2:30. You have to wait till 2:30. And she would look at her watch. So whenever she wanted to go, she'd say, it's 2:30. It's 2:30. Because that was her way of knowing that it was time to go. So,
apropos numbers, did you ever figure out why you saw those 333s?
Yes. And I'm not going to tell you what that is today, because there is an entire book that I ended up being given as a gift called Angel Numbers.
Yeah.
And there are multiple numbers that I have seen on license plates. It's just amazing. And when somebody gave me that book as a gift and I looked that up, I was like, oh my goodness. So there are still, I have that book on my end table and I still get messages. It's funny because when I wake up at night, if I wake up 3 or 4 times and there's specific numbers in a week, I know I need to look at that. But there is another thing that I learned that was real important on the path that I'm on, Claudia, and it is when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Okay. Everything that I have experienced and learned in this lifetime is not an accident. I chose to draw that information to me and to open my mind to it. One of the things that I learned really young is that nobody makes a liar out of themselves. And so, again, we have to go back to my 6th grade educated papa who told me, he said, do you think you can do that? And I was like, yes. And he said, okay, now I know you're going to go over there and you're going to do it. And I said, okay. He said, now, do you think you can do this? And I said, no. He goes, well, you'll never do it because you didn't say, I'll try. He said, people do not make liars out of themselves. They draw their own limitations. And if you think that you cannot do something, you will never make a liar out of yourself and do it, because then you would prove yourself wrong. And no one's going to do that.
What a wise sentence. I mean, that's amazing and so true. Put so simply, but so true, that we set our own limitations. I love that. Thank you for sharing this.
Well, you've got people who are in class with you that I know watch something and they think, oh my God, I'll never be able to do that. You know what? They're not, because they've already set that parameter for themselves. Instead of looking at it and saying, I want to do that, I'm going to figure out a way to do that. And so that lesson when I was in the 6th grade was something that served me so well for my entire life. And I even used that application in the many, many businesses that I had and the people that I hired. If I was going to hire somebody and train them to do something, one of my jobs in this life is to teach people to be self-sufficient and work for themselves, not anybody else. And if I had the opportunity to show them how to do that. And I'd say, okay, so this is going to take me this long to teach you this. What kind of money do you want to earn? This is the amount of effort you have to put in for it. Okay, what's the backup plan? If they sat down and explained they had a backup plan to me, I would never hire them because they weren't going to succeed. The people that I asked that question to, that looked at me and said, why do I need a backup plan? This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to be successful at. Those were the people that I took and called. So over the course of the 35 years that I owned a business and I mentored women, I have launched thousands of women into businesses on all different levels, from people that are CEOs for title companies, atypical people, go to school and learn how to become an engineer or an electrician, and let's open up a woman-owned company for that. And then on the lower level, there were a lot of people that I helped in economic struggling areas. I'm like, look, we need somebody to be a seamstress. Nobody at my house knows how to sew a button on. It's stupid to throw a shirt in the corner and buy a new one because it's got three buttons.
Right.
We're going to buy you a sewing machine and we're going to bring you everybody's clothes and you're going to be a seamstress, and we need somebody to come weed the garden. So I had this little business that I started for us to teach children, and I wanted to catch girls before they reached 13, called Mind Your Own Business. It meant to open up a business, figure out something to do to generate money. And it didn't have to be something extraordinary. They could weed a garden, they could help somebody pick up groceries, they could sweep, all things that you're capable of doing. And the world was much different, when I was doing this in the 70s and 80s than it is today. But there was just so much that you could do with somebody's mind when it wasn't formed to know what it couldn't accomplish. Okay. And so that, I think, was one of the most important missions that I had in my early life. I always thought I would be a teacher. Okay.
Well, you are right this moment. You're teaching us about so many spiritual things, 3D things, how to go about business. Okay, what's next?
Well, there was this movie, and it's an old black and white movie called Good Morning, Miss Dove. Okay, and this woman is a teacher in a small town, and all her students, she graduates and they go off, and one becomes a congressman, and it shows you all these people, and they always come back to see Miss Dove and tell her, thank you for the educational foundation and the care she took with them. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a teacher when I grow up. My angel was like, no, you're not. I was like, what do you mean? No, I'm not. She said, you won't be able to keep your commitment to your sister for that. You need to do something that allows you to be in control of your income, but you need to have a foundation of understanding business. You've got great common sense, but we need to put business application in it. And so with her help, and I'm a big job, Claudia. I have more than one angel. I've got like a whole team. I mean, lots of them.
Yes,
okay,
you do.
Because I draw them. The first time I ever saw the number of angels that were available to me, I remember going, oh my goodness, I've got a legion. I mean, when I decide I'll march for something and I know it's right, I don't march alone. I never march alone. I have a legion of angels that are with me. And they are capable of making me aware of what I have to do to bring the desired result there. And that's something.
May I interject here because
yes.
Our viewers might think, yeah, she has an angel, she has a legion of angels, but what about me? I just want to interject here in saying that every single person comes with guiding ones, guardians, guardian angel, and a lot of people want to help. But if we do not ask them or if we do not listen, we will not have connection. So I'm just want to put a side note here that I created a class about how to meet your guides, guardians, and angels so that you have conscious connection with them, just like Sherie does. Just want to put that out. You have it too. You just have to willing to open yourself up, to listen and to receive and to know. And there are pathways how to accomplish it. So go on, Sherie. I had to interject that.
Well, let's talk about that.
I even get jealous when I'm hearing you talking, oh, you have your legions. It's like, whoa, I want that, what she has, and so there is a way to get that.
That is precisely when I learned that I had more than that one angel, it kind of scared me. I was like, well, they must be thinking I'm going to do a lot of things wrong if I have to have that many teachers, to correct me all the time. And my angel laughed and she said, no, she said, you have to think about them like your personal board of directors. Okay. Every successful organization has a board of directors that all have different perspectives and specialties that contribute to the success of that entity by sharing that knowledge for the benefit of the whole. Right. And I was like, man, my own personal board of directors. Well, every single person has that available to them. And there are times in my life when I have gotten really grounded and I try to figure things out on my own. And it's not till like I'm going down for the third time that my angel whispers again. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I could have been getting help on this all along instead of struggling. But you have to want that help. And the way that they explained this to me when I was young is they used football. And they said, you know, you're like the coach. You're out on the field and you say, okay, I'm going to be the quarterback. Well, the whole rest of the team is sitting on the bench and you're going to go out there and you're going to try to pitch the ball, catch the ball, run the ball, make the touchdown. You're going to defend yourself against all of the other 11 guys. And the whole rest of your team's just sitting on the bench and you never called them in. They can't come help you because you didn't call them in. And I was like, wow. And she said, so if, you know, if that many is too much to start with, let's learn a few and let's do basketball. That's pretty simple. Okay. You cannot play basketball against the team by yourself on the court. Who do you pass the ball to? Okay. who distracts something for you? And so I never really thought about it that way. But you go into cycles where everything in your life is moving along and something really bad happens and you're grounded and you start trying to take care of it in the real world with only this dimension of help. And I need to tell you, and forgive me for saying this, it sucks. Okay.
Oh yeah, I just had one like that. It was a web designer. It really truly sucks.
Well, you know, your angels are so smart. Your whole team is so smart. I know that I needed a locksmith for something emergency, and it was something I did that was stupid myself. And this is back when they still had phone books, not the electronic age we had today. And I was like, I don't even know a locksmith here. And my angel said, open the book. And I was like, okay. So I opened the book and I have an angel pendulum. And I said, okay, are you going to help me pick out a locksmith? And she said, yes. Okay. And so I had my finger on here and I was like, this one, no, this one, no, this one, no, this one, no, this one, yes. Okay. And I said, is that the only one? She said, no. So out of this list, and the phone book had like 50 people in the list, there were 3. Okay. So now I had 3. And so I highlighted those 3. And I said, now, is one of these better than the other 2? Yes. Will you help me pick that person out? Yes. But if I don't ask, she can't tell me. And that's because God gave us free will. Now I could have opened that phone book and looked in it for hours and I wouldn't know which ones were the right ones to pick out. So why on earth would I even try to do that by myself when I have a whole group of angels who are willing to help me with that? And so I thought it was really interesting when we were in one of your classes, you talked about how each and every day you can ask, what is it I can do today? Or is there something I can do today to improve what I'm trying to accomplish? And asking them in advance is always better than asking them after. And I learned that the real hard way. Okay. There are these little prayers that I have that my angels are so funny that they help me write. But I need to know this and make it so obvious that even I won't miss the sign. Okay, because my mind is busy and worrying. But that's the hardest part about connecting to your angels. You have to quieten your mind. Okay.
So
you cannot receive a signal in if you don't have they've got to be able to send a signal in. But if you're blocking it, having 15 neuron signals coming out, it's really hard for you to be able to read that. And so it's so funny. I have such a childlike perspective of so many of the things that you have taught in your classes. You've got all the grown-up words for them, and I still have my my baby words from that, like when you taught us the golden light meditation. Okay. I know that there's something that connects me from the top, And after the first time I saw it, I was like, well, I wonder if we're like a puppet, like a marionette, and that's like a string that's controlling us. My angel said, no, you're in control of the string. It's your string. It would be you being you. And I was like, okay, so I would be like operating me. And she's like, yeah, so I kind of like that idea. Okay, then I'm in control of me. Then using a marionette like that makes it really easy. Am I going to walk this way? Am I going to jump up and down? Am I going to be happy today? Okay, that's the question. So I would make this illustrious plan of what I was going to do today from 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, boom, 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 boom. And it took me years before one morning I sat down and I said, well, I wonder if I should ask if there's something I could do to improve my odds of getting all this done today. And the answer came back, yes. Okay. And I was like, well, okay, what should I do? And the response came back, wait 2 hours to leave. And I was like, wait 2 hours to leave? Okay. Well, there's this horrible, massive pileup on the interstate that would have had me sitting in a car doing nothing, because back then you didn't have cell phones. But what I did was 2 hours of paperwork here before I left that I didn't have to do at the end of the day by prepping everything that I hadn't taken time to do. And I was like, wow. So now when I make a list of things to do before I leave in the morning, I ask, is it possible for me to get all of this done today? And if they say no, I say, well, I'm gonna highlight the things that are important. Tell me if I have to sacrifice any of those. And they'll say yes or no. If it's yes, they'll tell me which ones not to do.
Okay,
and if it's
so
something
let's underline, if I might interject again, too, because
okay,
you're talking very fast. You're talking about a lot of things, and this is awesome. But for the mind who's just all new to this, I want to say to ask questions. You see, Sherie said yes and no questions. Is this, can I get it all done? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, fine. If the answer is no, well, what do I need to do to improve? Or yeah, okay, I put in my priorities. Are those right? Yes or no? So these yes or no questions are a very, very good way to simplify and get answers, because you will intuitively, no matter how you work or how many angels are working with you, you will be able to go forward or backward or get some kind of sense about a yes or no. That's fairly simple and really accurate. So try it out at home here. Please continue. Thank you for sharing.
well, your solar plexus is going to tell you, you're going to feel it right there. Okay, the yes or no. And then one of the other things that I learned really early, when my communication with angels was progressing, at one point I was doing automatic writing, and this is before I had a computer at home. I would be woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would just know that there was something that I needed to know. And I would go into another room and take a notebook and an ink pen. And I mean, I would literally be falling asleep, but my hand would be writing. I would have writer's cramps. And it wasn't always spiritual information that they sent me. A lot of it was real world information about a contract that I was looking at. There was a property that I was negotiating on, and there was something that they were hiding from me in it. And my angel's like, beware. And I'm like, beware of what? And land. And so that was pretty amazing. And when I knew that I had that math deficiency, it's so funny, but I asked, I said, well, if I can ask for anything I want a math angel. Okay, when not knowing math, when you're having to quote things to people, you want to make sure you make a profit on the end of it. And there's so many aspects of cost and derivatives involved that I'm like, I'm never going to do this amount of work and not make money again. I need a math angel to help me figure this out. And so after I would sit down and figure this out, I'd say, okay, if there's anything that I have misjudged or not calculated properly on this, please find a way to let me know before 12 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, so I have time to adjust the contract. And that's when I would wake up, and there would be like, if you wake up every hour on the hour and the time is a number 28 minutes, well, something in there you got to go look for that's connected to that 28. And so there is an absolute plethora of ways, many, many different ways that angels communicate with you. I had one angel that used to tug on my ear, like your earring is too tight. Okay. And I'm like, what is that? I mean, I would take the earring off and it would still be like that. And I was like, oh, somebody's trying to get my attention. And then I would ask, and it's like, yes. And it's because I was so deep in thought doing something that I wasn't paying attention to any of the emotional part of me. So they had to do something in the physical part to get my attention. But I think the most amazing experience that I had with this was in 2007, because I was really grounded in the business world. And back then, you really didn't talk about anything that was spirit related or angelic. Like if I went to a metaphysical bookstore, I had sunglasses on and a hat because I didn't want anybody to see me. And the lady who owned the store said, "Oh, well, Sherie, what would they be doing in here? How could they say anything?" And I was like, I never thought about that, Diane. She goes, "Take the hat off." But when you are meant to learn something, when I would go to that store, I would go to a section like on reincarnation. I had these recurring dreams about things, and I knew that I needed to investigate that. And as I put my hand up to the bookshelf, the book would just like tip out.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'd be like, okay. And so I'd say, okay, any others that I should be looking at? And it'd be like, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, okay, this whole section is coming with me. And I would leave there with like a Coca-Cola box, like 20 or 30 books on a subject to go and read. And so after Hurricane Katrina came through New Orleans in 2007, I woke up, I went to bed at night, and I was the queen of quite a lot. And I woke up the next morning and found out that I was the queen of crap, because there was 10 foot of water over everything, and everything I owned was destroyed. And I had about 13 businesses back then. They were all underneath one roof finally, which I thought was such a great thing. And they were all gone in a flash. And I was just devastated over this. And I went and sat in the ocean, and I was trying to figure out what to do. And I was crying, and I said, I just don't know what to do. I don't even know who I am if I don't have all of those businesses anymore. I was so enmeshed into those businesses. They were like children that I gave birth to and raised. And my angel said, "Look at what I'm showing you." And I'm looking all around. I'm like, "I don't see anything." And she said, "Precisely. There's no limit on what you can do. The blackboard is blank. You can write anything you want on it. Why would you want to keep doing that? You've mastered all of those things. Let's do something new. You need to be challenged, and you have another path that you need to walk, and it's time for you to pay attention to that education." And right after that, I ended up, quite by accident, in divine intervention, meeting a woman who was the next spiritual teacher in my life. And so in the middle of all this devastation and all this financial craziness, she said, "Let's go to Sedona." And I was like, okay. And so my husband said, "Well, how are you going to not take care of your insurance claim? And where are you going to get the money to do that?" I said, "I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just booking my ticket." And you know what? I ended up with a property settlement that came in before I left. So I had the money to do what I wanted to do and really go to Sedona the way I wanted. And we flew out there into Phoenix, rented a car, and took off. And we were driving past the Red Rocks. And I was really, really in a somber mood, thinking about all of this destruction and chaos I had. And we were on this, everything there is on an edge of something, you look over and you could like drive off the cliff and be dead in 10 minutes. I'm like, I don't like
that's
this.
true.
And when I turned to the right, across the top of the Red Rocks, there was a message written across the rocks. It said, "Time for change," and an exclamation point. And I screamed. The poor girl dropped it, pulls off on his wheels. I was like, "Do you see that? Do you see that?" She's like, "What? What?" And there was nothing up there. And I was like, "I'm looking right at it. Time for change." And she looked at me and she laughed. And she said, "Well, honey, that message is just for you. Just for you." And so when we went into Sedona, we were there for 5 days. And there were that rock that I saw that writing on. I told her, I said, "Watch the mile marker on the car. I want to go back there." So I'm going to tell you about that one experience because it was critical for me in the rest of my path. We went back there, and I had like been in the business world my whole life, Claudia. I didn't own a pair of tennis shoes. I didn't own a pair of pants. I had dresses. I had to go buy a pair of jeans. I didn't own jeans. and some casual clothes to go on this trip. When she looked at my clothes in my closet, she goes, "You can't wear suits to go to Sedona." Everybody will laugh at you. You need like comfortable clothes, like cotton, things that breathe. You need like walking shoes. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not wearing a shoe that doesn't have a heel on it. That's not happening." So we get out the car, and I had a pair of blue jeans and a t-shirt that I had and a jacket. And she pulls up in the parking lot, and there's all these people that are hiking up that rock. And I'm like, I want to go up where I saw that. And it's kind of far up. And she said, okay. I said, everybody's walking this way, and I can see this long winding path. And I said, well, why do we have to go on that path? Let's go this way. And she said, how do you know where you're going? I said, I don't. I just feel like this is where we need to go. She's like, okay. So we get off the path and go in the gully. Okay. And so we're on this gully, and we're like in there for like an hour walking. And I mean, there's sticker bushes. I mean, there's like a snake that went by me. And I'm like, okay, maybe this wasn't such a good idea to be down here in this gully. And so we're walking, and this stuff is like ripping my arms up. She's like, this is so crazy. And I had clunky shoes on, and we're like crawling over logs and stuff. And so we get to this part, and it's like we're going down, down, down. And so now the mud to go up is like 8 feet high. And she's like, how are we going to get out of this gully? And I said, I don't know that yet. As soon as I figure it out, I'll tell you. But I was getting a little worried about it. Okay. And so I'm like, well, maybe we need to like shift over to the other side and get away from the target. Let's go to the left. And this whole time we're in there, we never hear a noise. Okay. There's like, you don't hear people talking. So I know we're far away from all those people. And she says, if we get in trouble and we yell, nobody's going to hear us. And I said, well, somebody will hear us. It just won't be people. Okay. So let's just keep going this way. I really feel like we need to do this. And so I could feel that we were elevating, because I could see the amount of mud about my head. So we finally get to this place where it's only like 4 feet, but that's still a lot of distance, for you to be able to pull yourself up. And it's nothing but like mud. So like I'm holding this, I'm like, I have this idea. Let me boost you up, and then you can crawl out. You can help me. So she's like, okay. So I got my knees. She's there like, and I'm boosting her up. And when she comes up, she sees people over there, and she starts yelling at them. And they come running over, and they go, what happened? Did you all follow me? And she goes, no, my crazy friend put us in here on purpose. And this guy looks at me and goes, it's against the rules to be in there. And I said, really? He said, yeah, there's this giant sign in the front that says you must stay on the path. And I said, well, I am on my path. So this is where I'm supposed to be. I know it. So it took 3 men to pull us out of that hole. So we get out, and I mean, our clothes are filthy. I got blood running down my arms. We came up right underneath the point that I saw on the highway where that sign was. And I said, okay, now I'm going to climb up on that rock. And this guy looks at me and goes, in those shoes? I'm like, yeah, I'm climbing up that rock. So he's like, you're not going to get too far with that. I said, trust me, I'll get where I need to go. It took us like 45 minutes, and I am not an experienced rock climber. I don't know anything about that. I mean, it messed up my manicure. I'm going to tell you that. Okay. But I got there, and I ended up sitting on the ledge right where that message that I saw was, or as best as I could figure. But when I sat there, I felt the most amazing spiritual experience. I felt like I was being washed clean. Like all of this worry that I had was just being pushed right out of me. And it was being filled with this amazing light, and the golden light that I had seen before and that I had come to know was now joined in by lights with all different colors, And I was like, I'm getting a rainbow. I'm getting a personal rainbow. This is so awesome.
Rainbow shower.
She goes, well, I'm not getting anything over here. And I'm like, well, then open your mind up and call your angels and tell them you're here and you're waiting, and that you're ready to receive whatever they want you to experience. And so it was just amazing. And so it lasted for like a half an hour. Okay. And I remember sitting there, and when it finished, I had no care in the world. Okay. The idea that I had lost everything that I spent 30 years of my life building meant nothing to me. The message that I received there was so loud and so clear, Claudia. If you can touch it, it's not worth anything.
Wow.
If you can touch it, it's not worth anything. what's important in this life and what you are to cherish is what you cannot see and you cannot hold. It is what you feel and what you know.
I get chills again. And with this, having had an hour of wonderful talk and messages, we have to come to a close today. And I think this is a wonderful closing statement. What you can see with your regular eyes is worth nothing, only that what you can sense from above. And that
know.
has to do with true love and what you know from your soul, so to speak. Well, that's a wonderful soul message and wonderful examples throughout your life of how to stay in touch with the spirit world in a good and meaningful way. And thank you so much for coming and having the courage to come on the show. And I hope our audience gets a lot out of this talk and how to have a attitude after you lose everything, how to go about your courage to do what you want to do instead of what you think you have to do and create your own path, and also how to deal with a God-blessed child, which is different than the average person. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. Sherie Conrad, you are a blessing to this world, and I'm so touched to have had you on the show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for letting me share these experiences, and I hope they help other people know that nothing is beyond their reach. If they can see it, they can have it.
And I'm sure we have you more often on the show because this was truly enlightening. Thank you so much and have a great day, everybody.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.